Zach, I told you that introduction was intense.
It was really intense. My heart was pounding.
I know it's kind of like almost the same excitement as trying to host a Twitter chat when Twitter's broken. Isn't that almost the same?
It was actually really exciting. You should have heard us on our end. Saiji, who's the head of marketing, and I were literally just calling back and forth. Is it working for you? Is it working for you? No, it's not working for me. What are they doing?
Well, I'm excited to say hello to everybody who's joining us. We are taking Mastery Chat off the rails. Zach and I are just going to be here. We're going to do Mastery Chat more live than ever because we are live on camera. We are going to do the questions here. Twitter's being weird, but guess what? Just in case the tweets load halfway or not, we're here. We're going to make it work. So, Zach, because we have you on camera, why don't we just have you really quick tell us a little about yourself, and then we could talk about what this Mastery Chat was supposed to be all about, and maybe give our viewers some questions they can respond to in the comments.
This is literally PBL in action, by the way. I just want to point that out. It's failing forward. That is what PBL is. We're doing it. We're not letting anything get us down. We're fighting the good fight and learning as we go along and creating our future.
There you go.
There you go.
I love it.
Where should we start?
Well, I'd love to actually hear just a smidgen about you, what you do, kind of like your background. I'm sure the first, few questions were, at least the first one was probably meant to be like, hey, everybody, introduce yourself. So we're going to kind of start there, even though a lot of you already participated. If you're listening right now, we'd love for you to give a little introduction on yourself. Who are you? Where are you tweeting from? And Zach, you can tell us, what do you do in education? What are you excited to discuss in Mastery Chat?
Awesome. I am a 4th and 5th grade teacher, first and foremost. I spent 5 years teaching kids and having the best time. And many years before that, being a camp counselor, just working with big groups. My dad's a social worker, and I always believed that you had to meet kids where they're at. And I always believed in joyful learning. And so that I just took that with me in everything I've done. And then I got really upset by the fact that I, as a teacher, was making so little money and couldn't really live, couldn't really support 3 kids on that income. And so I started getting really engaged in teacher movements around teacher pay. I created the $60K minimum teacher salary policy, which most of the Democratic field actually has adopted in this presidential primary. I'm getting my PhD at Columbia in politics and education at Teachers College, and figuring out ways to basically the idea behind my PhD is, how do you take concepts and pedagogy, what's happening in the classroom, and make great citizens? Like what is it about what we're doing in our classroom that's right or wrong or bad or good? And how do we basically build kids who are happy, joyful, healthy, and good citizens in America? And then I built UClass. That was a content management system that we sold to Renaissance Learning in 2015. Was the VP of strategic partnerships there. And then I'm currently building Zigazoo, and I'm a contributor for Forbes. And Zigazoo is a way for people to basically get access to great projects, project-based learning projects from zoos and museums and media stars and expert educators, some of whom, by the way, are with us tonight on this Twitter chat. And then kids respond with their own videos. So it's interactive. It's a two-way street. It's asynchronous learning. Kids are not just sitting there on a Zoom all day long. They're actually responding to great projects and doing it in their own time and being really creative in the process.
I know so many people that, similar to this tweet right here, were saying that they were excited to participate because they were so excited to talk about PBL and Zigazoo and everything else. So I'm so glad that we're gonna save the chat. We are still gonna have the conversation. I love it. You have done so much and sound like you have big plans for the future.
Oh, absolutely. I'm seeing some of my friends on here and I'm just so happy. Hi, Kristen. I think I saw a few others, maybe Jill out there, and Rochelle and Jeff. Good to see you guys all.
So fun. So you obviously prepared questions for tonight for Mastery Chat. For those of you that may be popping in live with us and maybe you don't participate in Mastery Chat, welcome to the family. You're officially here. There are questions that are posted throughout the hour. And I know we're having some problem sending tweets. Twitter's been down for the majority of the day. Tell me a little bit, Zach, like what was kind of the first question you were excited to share out? Maybe not word for word, but like, obviously we're talking PBL, right?
Yeah. First of all, I thought it would be helpful in this very teachery PBL kind of way to just figure out like how you guys are using project-based learning in your school. Like, what does it mean to you? And what do you feel about like the current formats that you're being asked to engage in? So for example, are you being asked to do lectures, standards-based, test-based stuff, and then you have to like fit PBL in? So I want to hear how it's working for you and what you think of your current model.
I love that. So I know you've already asked that questions. We had a lot of people respond. I'd love if you are live with us right now, even if you already shared your answer, we would love to have you share right now in the comments, like how you use PBL, if you have experience. I saw Jamie popped in. She was somebody who I already retweeted. Jill was in here. I retweeted her tweet earlier. I know a lot of people that are already in the comments here, like Kristen, Rochelle, you guys have been tweeting all day about this. We'd love to hear about how you use PBL. Zach, when you were originally thinking about this question, kind of getting a gauge of the room, what would have been your answer? Like, I mean, obviously you've experience with PBL, but when did you start using it? When was it something that became kind of a passion for you?
Yeah, that just actually gave me chills to think about, because I spent my first year of teaching teaching wrong, basically.
We all do.
I really was, though. You're taught to in unfortunately a lot of American programs to teach, and I don't blame anyone for doing this, but it's like give kids a paragraph. How many multiple choice questions can you get right? Like, you get a piece of candy for everyone you get. I mean, like crazy stuff that like shouldn't happen. And that's like literally how I was taught to teach. And I felt something wrong with it. And so I started to branch out, and I started to dream of what I wish for my kids. Because I actually got to loop. Has anyone out there gotten to loop before?
Yes, I love looping with students. So that means, those who may not know, you get to see your students over the course of multiple years.
And I'm seeing so many of these, so many expectations for what has to be covered. Teachers are afraid to do PBL. I completely agree. So I got to loop, and I started thinking about like what my ideal school would be, and my ideal school would be to go take my kids on a school bus for the first part of the day, and then come back and apply learning for the end. And I remember coming up with that between the summer between my first and second year, and I built like a little bit of a new curriculum. I had some flexibility. And then in my actually fourth year of teaching, I'm going to fast forward this story a little bit. I worked in an international school, and I got to do the international baccalaureate curriculum. And does anyone know about that? Anyone out there?
I don't, but I'm excited to hear about it.
It was all about inquiry-based learning, and about, instead of learning stuff, like learning stuff, it's about the whole point is you want to teach a kid how to learn, because you're never going to teach kids everything, and you shouldn't have to teach kids everything. We have these devices for information, and kids know how to fact gather, but or they don't. The point is, teach them how to fact gather, teach them how to figure out what is true and what is false, teach them how to analyze and get passionate about things. And so when I started to teach through the IB way of learning how to and developing purpose, I started getting really passionate about it. And that's actually when I came back to America and started doing a little bit more in that realm of project-based and thinking larger about it. Long story short is, this past year I spent at Teachers College at Columbia. I spent some time transforming DOE schools in New York City into project-based learning schools. And it was one of my favorite things I did. So I took like a school, one of my favorites is in Staten Island. If Nancy Murillo is out there, she's one of the best principals ever. And she was like, Zach, just tell me what to do. Let's go. And we did it. We like had the best time, and the teachers were so into it. And what we realized, they were so afraid at first. They were like, I can't do this. I've been teaching this standards-based, like step-by-step way for so long. And the reality was that by the end of the process, they were so, like right now, they're so happy. They love it. Because they feel joy while they teach, because they're teaching with purpose. They're teaching real world experiences. The kids are happier and more engaged, but they're also able to get the standards in and everything, all the complex, important skills the kids need.
Of course, absolutely. You see, a lot of the parts of your story are kind of the comments that we've obviously been sharing them on screen for those of you that are watching with us. A lot of people seem to struggle with. I loved this comment that was talking about, oh, I did PBL wrong. I was doing learning based on projects, which is not,
Right.
So many people start that way, or this complex of like, oh, I thought it was super complicated, so I never did it. And then you start looking into it and you're like, no, this is so eye-opening for our learners. So it seems like your story of how you started getting into it and how it really changed you as an educator is actually a lot of the things that people are sharing here, and they're all in different pockets of that transformation, right?
Yeah, and what I love about it is, one, it's humanistic. It's kids doing things that kids naturally want to do. And isn't that great? Like, shouldn't we all be like humane with students as much as possible? I feel that way about, my own kids. Like, when possible, like let's do something fun, you know what I mean, on the weekends. But then the other part that I really like about it is that it's preparing kids for the world that they're going to enter. Like, it's a complex world, and you're not going to be asked to like honestly answer multiple choice questions. You're going to be asked to solve complex problems.
Absolutely. So that obviously took up the first question that you did for Mastery Chat. I know you had others planned. Was there another question that either you were able to ask or we just decided to come live so you can ask it for the first time now? I love seeing that people are participating still in Mastery Chat, especially by putting your answers in the comments. I'd love to pose another question. I'm sure related to PBL is where we're headed. But was there a question you were excited to hear people's thoughts on?
Yeah, I have too many, but I'll go with this one.
Well, all right. We could cover a few.
So I just wrote a piece in Forbes about asynchronous learning. And it really is about PBL. I mean, I took all the like pillars of PBL, which is that it should be, student driven, that there should be driving questions that guide kids' learnings, that at the end of the day, teachers are happier and kids are happier when teachers act more as coaches. And when you're not just, talking at kids, which honestly we're trained to do, I was trained to do, and it can be easier. But I wanted to get into this idea because it's super relevant right now, which is, let's discuss the difference between synchronous and asynchronous, right? Because some of you are probably hybrid, some of you are virtual. So synchronous is where everyone is learning at the same time, and asynchronous is when students do the work by themselves or in groups, and then they come back to you with either final products or with rough drafts or with ongoing work. And so I'm just curious with everybody, what's the mix of synchronous to asynchronous instruction this year in your hybrid, virtual, or in-person classrooms?
That's a great question. So in the chat right now, we'd love to have you share either on your phone if you're texting or on a computer if you're there. We'd love to hear kind of like, I like that idea of like kind of like the ratio, like what's your balance right now? Let's assume we're in 100%, scale. I want to know, is it like 40% synchronous, 60% asynchronous? Tell us your flow. And I think it would also be helpful, Zach, for us to know if they were fully remote, hybrid, or in person, because while we may have an opinion on what the percentage turns out that they answer that we can talk around, it might also lend itself to understanding the type of environments your students are in and the choices you've made in terms of the balance between synchronous and asynchronous as well. So I'm excited to see what people share out.
And if you're just learning about asynchronous learning, don't feel bashful. You could say what your ideal would be as well.
Yeah. I know I was working with a teacher earlier this week who was telling me she's been teaching fully synchronously and started doing like a little bit of asynchronous. Like she said, was doing it 1 day a week. I'm like, 1 day a week, that's 1/5. That's a big jump you just typed in. Like,
big jump.
I know. So I'm like, okay, so, slowly but surely we're all finding that perfect blend. And depending on what type of educator it is, those percentages can look different based on your comfort level. I love that, Zach, you said numerous times that we weren't necessarily prepared to teach this way when we were in college. So this is a learning curve that I have seen so many teachers embrace successfully. So Livia says that they're face-to-face. And so she has been working synchronously right now. So would you mind, for those people who may not remember those definitions you gave us, synchronously is what?
Yeah, so even when you're face-to-face, you still can do asynchronous learning. And so I think that it's when kids are working on their own or in groups. It's when you're not driving the learning. So synchronous would be like me right now lecturing at you.
Yeah.
Like a TED Talk is synchronous, or a really boring calculus lecture in college is synchronous. And asynchronous would be like design thinking, where someone gives you a challenge and then you have to solve it on your own, and then that leads you to more learning. And then of course you might group up and a kid might share what they learned as they try to solve the problem, and then et cetera and so forth. So that would be more like asynchronous, because the kids are actually driving the learning, doing the work.
Yeah, and it's interesting. A lot of people are putting in their percentages. I'm seeing 50-50, 80-20. Remember, you could talk about synchronous and asynchronous being 50-50 within one class hour, or 50-50 within a week. I mean, like the time frame is also going to be something to consider as we think about our class. Are we thinking about a class in terms of a 47-minute period, or a class within a week or a month or a full unit? Those percentages are interesting to look at.
Yeah, this is really interesting. We have some students 4 days on, one day at home, God bless you, but most are 2 days in school, 3 days at home, and then some students are completely remote. Wow, Lindsay, I don't know how you.
And Lindsay actually took over our Instagram today. She had so much to share. Guys, by the way, if you're listening now and you don't follow the Teach Better team on Instagram, I think you can also get the stories on Facebook. But Lindsay Titus like blew up the world today with her incredible insight on Instagram stories. So go check her out for sure.
I love it.
So this is interesting. Olivia was the one who said earlier that she was like 5 days a week, they're doing synchronous, but now she's talking about passion projects. So Olivia, you may not be teaching synchronously. You might like learn something here where you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not fully synchronous.
Right. In fact, anytime a student generally is writing, they're doing asynchronous, just as a thought, because you're responding to a prompt and you're kind of figuring it out as you go. I actually did a lot of work in a school in Brooklyn this year on basically asynchronous kind of project-based, inquiry-based learning, which are all very similar and tied together for math. And one of the cool things with math is that, you think math as just like, step by step by step, but there's a lot of really wonderful ways, especially at the beginning of a lesson, to get kids to jump into a topic by posing a problem that's like right at their challenge level, right before they're able to grasp or learn a new concept. And there's just a lot of really cool research about that, about kids, trying to grapple with concepts that they haven't yet learned, and in the process building neurological pathways in their brain that basically help them to create their own learning, as opposed to what is actually a lesser version of retention and learning, which is just to like copy and kind of regurgitate.
Well, you're totally speaking my language, Zach. I know we don't know each other very well, but we are going to be fast friends. I'm currently a full-time 6th grade mean old math teacher. So
really?
I work with asynchronous, synchronous learning all the time, and related to math and PBL. This is like my jam. When I saw your questions for this mastery chat, I was like, who is this guy? Why are we not best friends?
Well, we can do a separate Zoom and talk about failing forward all night long.
Seriously,
I'm happy to. I'm seeing a lot of really great responses here. Synchronous 40%, primarily in person.
So I'm looking at that, but they have extended learning time in the afternoon that's asynchronous, but I'm moving more asynchronous in person starting next week. So I think that's interesting to think about. I think that at least a lot of teachers in the building I work with specifically, we're moving from remote to hybrid on Monday. A lot of teachers were like, oh, I'm going to teach asynchronously when we're remote, but when we get back into hybrid, I'm going straight, synchronous again. And I'm like, wow, that is a different, complete approach to teaching. Like that shift is very strong. And I think a lot of that comes from the first question you asked of people saying that it might be a little out of their comfort level to try something new. And so when you were in a completely new environment, trying something new seemed like a must, versus when you get back into your comfortable environment, it's harder to choose to continue to try something that feels new.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think if there's any silver lining to what's been going on, it's that people have gotten out of their comfort zones, right? And we've had to have these conversations about synchronous versus asynchronous, whereas we may have never had them before, right? And so I think one of the hopes that I have is that so in the process of trying to think, how in the world am I going to get kids to actually do the work at home? You might have had to think a little bit more humanistically than you were taught to think when planning for in classroom instruction, where you have behavioral management plans and you have socializing and all these other things. Whereas I think that I've heard from a lot of teachers that they had to give kids activities that they would actually do, right? That they would actually care about and that actually had meaning and purpose. Which brings me, if you don't mind, to a few of the big parts about project-based learning. So the pillars of project-based learning. And I think it's important to mention that they're oftentimes big units of study with a topic that is something that people care about. So if you're a second grade teacher, maybe it's about pollinators. If you're a sixth grade teacher, it might be a bigger unit on the ethics of vaccines, right? Maybe that's eighth grade. I don't know, but in the process, you're learning all your skills. You have driving questions that kind of creep in each day. So in like a single day or over the span of a week, and then you build an experiential learning. Now, the really important part about project-based learning, which we actually do on Zigazoo and some technology platforms help with, but ultimately is also really powerful and important in real life, is that you're not just learning for learning's sake or passing in papers. At the end of every project-based learning unit, you should have a public project that you're presenting to an authentic audience. So for those pollinators, you should maybe be developing ways to attract more pollinators to a public park, and then sharing that not just with your teacher and your classmates who you see every day, but to at the minimum an assembly of parents, at a maximum maybe to town council or to the mayor. And these are the types of projects where kids just are super motivated to dig into the science, into the math, into the reading, because there's a lot of purpose. They care about their output and they know that what they're doing matters. And because of that purpose, they're able to drive types of learning and get to like the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy, which is create, because they're actually engaged.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to continue to preface to all of you participating now, even if you're watching this video after the fact, feel free to comment. I mean, Zach and I love talking shop about this topic, and it won't just be while we're live now. We'll pay attention to this video and continue to try and help and direct you to resources. A lot of PBL work sounds so open-ended. Zach, there's so many teachers that say, well, how do I meet the standards? How do I give the tests? How do I make sure they learn? And I want to preface for all of you listening, while Zach and I have a lot of recommendations, there are so many ways to start so small with PBL, like very, very small. You can start and be comfortable, dip your toe in the water, get feedback from students, and then slowly build up. Because while we know this is the future of what education has to be, we also understand that transformations don't happen overnight. And whether it's, PBL or, obviously with the Teach Better team, we work a lot with Mastery Learning or the Teach Further model. Everything is just around this idea of like being a little bit better every single day. So if you're challenging yourself to just take a little bit, imagine how far you get in a month or a year or 2 years.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And this could be as simple as like little projects, just small things that kids do and then have an output on. That's actually what Zigazoo is built around, our platform, which is these small projects. So if for like a 3-year-old, it's can you build a color wheel out of toys in your house, right? Or for a little bit older, can you, show us centripetal force using a balloon and a penny, right? Little driving questions that kids can on their own go and create and do, and they're learning really powerful stuff when they don't even realize they're learning. They're just having fun.
So if I'm a teacher watching and I'm not familiar with Zigazoo, this is my first time, I'm meeting you, I'm like, oh, this guy seems pretty smart. I'm going to go check out this app, right? So what am I going to expect? Do I have to sign in? Is this free? Is there a paid subscription? Give me like the elevator pitch of Zigazoo so that all these educators can go check it out.
Yeah, so first of all, you're going to see when you go in as a teacher, you're going to have your own private classroom that you can invite your students to. And you will see tons of channels from everyone from like zoos and science museums. And we have science educators and math educators and Grammy award-winning artists who do mindfulness and really great arts and crafts, everything that you can imagine. They're videos and they all have instructions with resources and then a driving question. And so you can go ahead and you can on Zigazoo look through all the great resources and decide you want to assign one to your students, or you can go ahead and you can make up your own. And so you just, you can put up an image, write a driving question, and then the students, when they're assigned it, will receive it, and then they can go ahead and respond. And their responses are only 30 seconds, and they show up in the feed. And the kids love it. I think we have a few Zigazoo users on the chat, so I'd love to hear from you guys if you want to share how you're using it. But the kids love it because it feels like they're on social media, but they're really learning. And so they're you're using something that they enjoy, that they're comfortable with, that they like, that they think is cool. And then you're really connecting socially. Oh, thank you. That means a lot, Kristen. What's really great about it is that you have this opportunity to kind of like socially connect as well as learn at the same time, doing it in a way that's really fun for kids.
Oh, I love that. See, that was a great elevator pitch. It's like you do this all the time.
My job. Now these days. So
that's so awesome.
We're actually doing this thing where we're doing, real quick, we will start to charge for certain features, but you get the whole year for free if you sign up before October 31st. So I do recommend that you do that as a teacher.
Okay.
So go ahead and sign up.
Yeah, go download that right now before you forget, because you'll put it on your to-do list and it'll just get lower and lower. So go download it on your phone right this moment. That way you can get it for the full year and become an advocate, just like all these other amazing educators. And I do have to say, you've built an incredible base of educators using it. I mean, even just our Mastery Chat family, to know this many outstanding educators that we respect and love and always love to hear insight from, they're all saying this is a great program. So go check it out and definitely download before the 31st. So
yeah, fun. Thank you. And one other thing is we're doing this little series for the next 5 weeks, including a couple of people on this chat. We're taking a few influential and awesome teachers, and we're having them basically it's like a Zigazoo takeover. They're taking over our account, and they're gonna basically be putting up projects for the week. And so you'll see their faces, them basically the experts leading the projects. And so you can go on and see some of your favorite Teach Better teachers on Zigazoo and do them with your kids.
Oh, we can't wait to see those. I'm so glad that's happening. That sounds awesome. Zach, we've been live for a half an hour. I know this wasn't probably the exact format of what you thought Mastery Chat was going to be like tonight, but I just want to share with you that I've loved seeing so many people in the comments. You've shared so many tips and tricks for people who want to learn about PBL, talk about asynchronous and synchronous work, and this conversation does not end here. Would you mind sharing how people can stay connected? Can they reach out to you personally? Like how can they continue this conversation?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, happy to communicate on Twitter. My handle is @ringzak, as RINGZAK. And then you all can also follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and our handles for Zigazoo are @GetZigazoo. If you have any questions, of course, you can direct message me or Zigazoo, or on our Facebook channel, you can do the same. And then if you're a teacher out there who wants to present your content on Zigazoo or is interested in getting started, please let us know. We are constantly trying to find expert teachers who have great ideas and want to start kind of building out ways to share those great ideas with other teachers and with homes and pods who unfortunately aren't in school. So trying to figure out the best ways to do that. And then just in general, I'm always writing, always gathering, always trying to like solve these problems. And the problem for me is always, how do you make learning joyful? Because I don't think kids just should learn. I think that it should be joyful. Kids should enjoy their day and have fun and love learning so much that they come back. And so I am constantly asking questions about how to do that, because at the end of the day, I think joyful kids are happy kids, and healthy kids. So anyway, if there's any ways you want to share any ideas for Forbes articles, anything like that, I'm happy to talk about it. And I just am so grateful to you, Rae, for putting this together. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here.
Well, this is so fun. Zach and I are going to stay here, but we are going to say goodbye to all of you. Thank you for all that you do. I hope you go connect with Zach and Zigazoo and go download the app before you forget. And if you're using it, we'd love to continue to hear the strategies you're using with your students, and hopefully continue this conversation a little later. But thank you so much, guys. We'll see you later.